Stacking your bass against your kick is one of the best ways to make them groove together, and it also tightens up your mix. Now, to achieve this, most people use sidechain compression, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what if I told you that there's a clever alternative? So the technique I'm about to show you in this tutorial gives you an extra layer of creative expression, but it also gives you much more precise control over your signal in the mix. And if you watch this video till the end, I will give you a free Max for Live tool that makes your life much easier. It does all the heavy lifting for you, and it's completely free. So here we have our kick and bass. Now, as you can tell, the bass is very busy. It's also supposed to be quite groovy, but the groove doesn't really come to life between kick and bass. So what most producers will do at this point is simple sidechain compression. Let me show you how this is done. So you add a compressor to your bass signal, and then you open up this little panel here that allows the sidechaining to happen. And you have to say where the audio is coming from. So in this case, the kick is our signal that triggers the compressor. So every time the kick hits, the bass signal is being taken down by the compressor. There are two things I really like about sidechain compression. The first is that it creates an organic sounding groove between kick and bass, depending on how you set your attack and release settings. So attack is like how quickly does the compressor kick in. Release setting is like how quickly does a compressor get back to the zero state. And by the way, if you want me to do a deep dive on compression, then leave a comment below. I don't know how relevant this is to you. If there are enough compression tutorials out there already, leave a comment and let me know. The other thing that I like about sidechain compression is that depending on which compressor you choose, you can also infuse some of the sonic characteristics of the compressor onto the bass signal. So let's say you use a vintage tube compressor emulation, or a real thing if you want, then you get a little bit of that character infused. And that is something that is really nice with sidechain compression. So all in all, sidechain compression does the job in many scenarios, but sometimes you want a little bit more control over the signal. So for example, if I play this now and play around with the attack and release settings, you can create small variations on how this compression curve, the envelope that then results in the signal, is being shaped, but it's definitely limited to what is possible with these settings. Let's now talk about the alternatives to sidechain compression. Now, before we get there, I have a free gift for you. It's called the Finisher Framework. It's my 3 simple steps that will help you finish at least one great sounding song per month. I think that's a great goal to have. You can get it at pickyourself.com/framework. It's completely free. You find the link below in the description. So one alternative you've seen me use in a lot of videos is the LFO tool by Xfer. This is very cool because it gives you a quick way to dial in the exact envelope that you want your bass signal to result in. So if you have a 4 to the floor kick drum, all you have to do is you have to dial in a quarter note right here of this LFO. So LFO is a low frequency oscillator. This basically just takes down the gain of the signal in exactly the way that I dial in here. If I set this super low here, we will have no bass signal here, and it will gradually ramp up and then play to its full potential until here, and then it will quickly go down. What I like about this tool is that it gives me such a quick result and that I can completely fine-tune the curve that I want my bass to result in. And some of my other videos I've mentioned briefly that you can do something like this with just Ableton stock tools, and then immediately I got some comments, yeah, please show us how. And this is exactly what I'm about to do now. So to emulate this, you need 2 components. The first one is the Ableton Utility. The utility lets you adjust the gain here, and we want to do this automatically, so what you then need is an LFO. So in Ableton's LFO, we now need to dial in a couple of parameters. First of all, let's set our speed to quarter notes and switch the waveform to triangle. Now you could theoretically also work with the sine wave, but I think the triangle wave is more similar to the thing that we've seen in the other LFO tool. And we map this to the gain here. Now, as you can see, this jumps around like crazy. This is not what we want. So you have to dial in, first of all, the offset so that it starts a little bit more on the negative side of, and then also adjust the depth so that it's a little bit less extreme. Yeah, so now we're getting into the ballpark of what we want. That's actually quite nice. It gives you this bouncing feeling, and you can now dial in and fine-tune the parameters to create exactly the kind of groove that you want. So this is basically how much you want this LFO to influence these parameters. If I go to 100%, you see that it's moving quite a lot. If I bring it down, it's just moving a tiny bit. Yeah, this is how extreme you influence that gain. The smoothing parameter, this basically makes our triangle wave a little bit less sharp. So meaning it rounds off the edges and makes it a bit more sine wavy. The cool thing is that you can also play around with something like phase shift to create a little bit of a different groove. So this way you could add a little bit of swing to the signal. Now the true magic happens when you actually influence that LFO with some other modulator. For example, a different LFO. And we will map this second LFO, for example, to the smoothing parameter, but let it just influence a tiny bit. As you can see, we get a really interesting complex waveform here. Let's listen to that. Now this is not even synced to the groove, but let's say you sync this, for example, to dotted eighth notes or a triplet or like a little bit more crazy setting, then you can really create nice micro grooves that happen within the original bass signal. And even if you have a super straight bass, you can now infuse some extra life to this, and Sidechain Compression would not be able to do this. Now I hope that this technique already inspires you to think of some creative techniques on how to use this in your sessions. Now I've promised you a free and powerful Max for Live tool that gives you even more possibilities. I'm now going to reveal what that tool is, but before we get there, if you got any value out of this video so far, then consider subscribing to the channel, consider liking this video. It really helps creators like myself out. It shows me that I'm making progress with the videos, and it will also help you because the algorithm will suggest better videos to you. It's just the way it is. So the new Max for Live tool that I'm talking about is called Cartesian Sidechain. It is by a new developer that I personally haven't heard of. He sent me this directly a little bit before the release. I think it's really user-friendly. It's very easy to use and similar to the LFO tool. It's a little bit less powerful than the paid options, but it is even quicker to use, and that is beautiful. So let me show you how this works. You dial in the time signature here, or you can use a free floating hertz function, but it's already dialed in a quite nice way. If you snap it to the grid, it just means that these points here will be locked to the grid that you see here. So you can change the grid here. And if you unsnap it, you can do something like this. For example, if it creates like a click sound in the end. As you hear this little click sound, this is because this is closing too fast. So you can dial in a tiny curve to make it a bit more natural in the end. And here you see the original and the resulting envelope of the bass signal. The cool thing is you can also dial in a new envelope that you even haven't thought of before. You can go creative and do something like this. Or you can smoothen the waveform again to make it a bit less clicky. It even has a wet-dry mix, which is also quite nice to have. And you can also get rid of this and just draw your own shape or start with one of these shapes here. The jitter function creates extra points. Doesn't make too much of a difference here. It just means it's even less smooth if you add a little bit of that jitter. Now, if you want to try this device for yourself, just go to the official Max for Live directory, download it from there, drag it into your user folder, and then you're good to go. If you want to support the creator, Cartesian, then follow his Instagram. That's the thing that he shared with me. You can see the link here. If you have any other video topics that you want me to cover, then leave a comment below. Like this video right here is a result of you guys leaving comments. So leave a comment below, let me know what you want me to create, and I will most likely do it, and I will see you in the next video.